Well, hello, lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jamie Wolfer, and I'm a wedding planner in Southern California. And each and every single week, I bring you tips and tricks and DIYs and behind the scenes to just help you understand this whole wedding planning beast just like a little bit more. Now, if you happen to miss last week's video, you need to stop whatever you are doing and go take a look at that right now. I'm gonna link it up here in the cards. It is the biggest collaboration I have done to date, and we need your help. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause for a minute. Let's go ahead and click on that. If you haven't had a chance to take a peek at it yet, do that. Do that now, and then come back to this video. We have been overwhelmed with the response that we've received so far, and we just want to keep this ball rolling. So for those of you who've already commented and shared, thank you so very much. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are about to share, because I know you're going to, thank you very, very much. Another thing I would love to bring up, because I feel like the beginning of my videos are like announcements, is that the Union podcast, the podcast that I have with Heather, are hosting a little mixer, a little get-together, if you will, for both wedding vendors and couples. So if you want to come hang out with us, all the details are going to be in the description box down below. It's going to be the end of this month, the 29th. We got an extra day this year. Let's take full advantage of it and hang out. Let's go grab a drink, meet some vendors, have a cocktail. I can hug you. So many fun things. Just a couple of hours for us to hang out together. Again, all the details down below. It's going to be at Urbanwood in San Diego from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the 29th. Tickets are available in the link below. In this week's video, we are going to talk about a subject that I get so many questions about, like so many, and that is seating charts, assigned seating, open seating, all of the details of where people put their tushies during dinner time. So I thought it'd be a good idea to compile everything in relation to seating charts and assigned seating all into one video, and here it is. If you are a note taker, this is end of video Jamie. Looking up at her camera and realizing she's been filming for like 30 minutes. If you're a note taker, get ready, because there's a lot of information coming your way, but I gotta say it, so you need to know. It's everything you need to know about seating charts. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Now, it's important to note, starting off, that this is for a dinner. If you are having a appetizer-only style reception or dessert-only style reception, this is not going to apply to you at all whatsoever. You still will need tables for people to like set their plates down onto if they're using a fork to like cut into things, and you'll still need to figure. That's a video for another time. This is for specifically if you are serving your guests dinner, which I know is a majority of you. Another little disclaimer that I'd love to share that I tend to share at the beginning of a lot of my videos is my experience is limited to my experience. There may be things in your culture or where you're from specifically that would negate everything that I'm saying or portions of what I'm saying. So feel free to filter through whatever information's coming up out of my mouth and make it apply to you and your life and your event. So with that out of the way, we're gonna cover the top 3 ways that you can have people sit down during dinner at your wedding. The first one would be you assign their chair. The second would be you assign their table, and the third one would be you don't assign anything at all. So we have assigned chair, assigned table, or unassigned. There could be other options, but I don't know them. Like, I tried to think of other options. You could do a combo of some of those, I guess. But like, those are the 3 basic ones. So when you are assigning someone a chair, that means you are designating a specific seat for them to sit in at a very specific table. This is most often used for when you have a plated meal and the server needs to know where to bring that specific plate, or if you have social situations where you want to make sure people are in designated seats, which could include, but is not limited to, people who might not necessarily get along well together. And that could be like divorced persons or family members who aren't speaking, or just friend groups generally that might clash with one another and you want to assign specific seats for them. The second option would be assigning them a table. Now, this is the most common option that I see in the events that we work. That's where you say, hey, you're at table 7, but they could pick which seat they want at that table. This more often than not is used for buffet style events and or family style, anything that isn't plated and therefore extremely specific to the person that's sitting in that chair. And the last option is unassigned, open seating. It's a free-for-all. You can sit wherever you like. And this is something I've learned from like previous videos that a lot of places do this. I personally am not a huge fan of it, but I understand that that's quite normal for a lot of people. The only thing that you will need to do when doing unassigned seating is you'll need to have an extra 10 to 20% worth of seats in case all of the groups and numbers don't work out quite right. And that will happen. I have had a situation where we've had to pull multiple extra tables because the numbers didn't work out right when a couple had open unassigned seating, and it got a little chaotic. If that's the norm for you guys, great. Just make sure you have a contingency in place with some extra tables and chairs when the numbers don't work out correctly. So those are like the 3 different types of seating. Now let's talk about the seating chart, shall we? Because this is one where I see so many clients and I see so many subscribers talking about how stressful this is. And it is, and I want to take off as much of that pressure as I possibly can. So when it comes to your seating chart, typically there is a sweetheart table or a head table. If it's a sweetheart table, it's just you and your honey. If it's a head table, that means the bridal party is joining you. You can choose to add the bridal party's plus ones and or spouses, girlfriends, boyfriends, if you have enough room at that table, or you can just have your bridal party instead. So you got a couple different options for when it comes to who's sitting next to you. Now let's talk about like the overall layout of the room. There are quite a few opinions on this, but here's what I see to work out the best. At the tables closest to you, you're going to want your immediate family. Parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts and uncles, those who have been an integral part of your life for a long part of your life. The next furthest rung out, you're going to want to have family, friends, and then at the very furthest points, you can have your friends from college, you can have your coworkers, typically your generation, typically a little bit younger, and this works out nicely because they're less likely to be offended by their seating proximity to you as some of the older generation might be, because they deserve a seat of honor at being your grandparent or being your aunt or uncle. So as you can see, you're kind of going from the people who have known you the longest, like from your mom, from your very first breath, to the people who have known you the shortest. And that's why so many people get caught up in doing seating charts, is because they don't want to offend anybody. So I would say that tends to work out really, really well. Now I just want to reiterate real fast, these are just general guidelines. But remember that somebody's going to have to sit in the back of the room, so be sure that whomever you put back there is going to be the least offended by that decision, okay? Okay, so there's the overall flow of where people go, right? Right. Now, inevitably, the next question that kind of comes with like assigning seats, seating chart, etc., is the actual way of communicating where people are seated. Obviously, if you are doing unassigned seating, this next section won't apply to you. But if you are doing either an assigned chair or an assigned table, then this one's for you. There are 3 ways that you can kind of communicate where people are seated. You can do escort cards, you can do seating chart and escort cards, or you can just do seating chart. I know, this feels pretty complicated, but I promise, stick with me. It's gonna make sense. If you are doing assigned seating, you do need to have escort cards. You need to tell people exactly where they are seated. And if that is the case, the escort card needs to be at that seat. So once people come inside, they can see where their card is and sit at that appropriate seat. On the escort card, you may be communicating what that person is eating. If they have any sort of gluten sensitivities, that needs to be denoted on their card. If they have a vegan preference, or perhaps you just need to delineate between the chicken or the beef, that also needs to be on that card at their seat. So when a server comes out with that food, it goes straight to that person. So if you're doing a plated meal, you need to have escort card at their seat. Now, the question is, how do people know what table their card is going to be at? That's where a seating chart in advance comes in handy. So that way you tell them, cool, you're going to be at this table. When they come inside, they go straight to their table and then look around for their card. Or you can just choose to have escort cards as a means of communicating what table someone is at. It could be some sort of cute little individual display. I've seen people do paint samples or just cute escort cards. You can have them displayed on a table or clipped to some sort of display anywhere that is a non-windy location. And that part's important. Why is that part important? Because I've chased down escort cards before. So it ain't fun. And if it is potentially in a windy location, that they are weighed down by something. It could be like a little escort card holder. I had a couple do a chapstick and like taped individual chapsticks onto everyone's escort card, and that was super cute too. So it doubled as like a weight and their favor. And it says Jamie Wolfer, table 7. So that means that I know I'm at table 7, I can go ahead and take that with me, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my seat is assigned. And if you're going to use escort cards and they're on some sort of display, be sure that they are organized alphabetically by last name. Because when you're looking at something really tiny and looking for like where you're supposed to be seated, and let's say you're at table 12 out of 20, then it's going to take you a long time to scan through all of those tables to find your number. So be sure to organize them alphabetically by last name because it's a lot quicker for people to scan through. So option number 1, assigned seating. Like tush in specific chair, that card needs to be at that chair with a seating chart beforehand. Escort cards, if they're allowed to choose their seat at their table, just put their name and their table. Again, in a non-windy location or weighted down. And then there's the good old-fashioned classic seating chart. Now this is the most common one. Most of the couples we work with just don't happen to do plated meals, so we don't tend to deal with escort cards that often. Also, seating charts generally tend to be easier to assemble and for people to view and go through, which is why they tend to be the most popular option. When it comes to an overall seating chart, there are a myriad of displays that you can do. The world is your oyster when it comes to a seating chart. You really can do so many things. Like with the escort cards, it is a great idea to organize people alphabetically. It means they find their names faster, which means they get to their seats faster, which means you get to dinner and dancing faster. However, it is far more popular to organize them by table numbers. The good news is that because it's listed out on like a fairly easy to read list, which is what listing out is, it's easier for people to read through chunks of lists than it is through little individual cards. While alphabetical is faster, table numbers are more popular for seating charts. So let's talk about where we place these, shall we? Whether they are escort cards or a seating chart, this should be placed in your cocktail hour space. Why? Because it gives more people more time to go over and take a look at it. If it is right next to your reception entrance and let's say you have 125 guests and they all need to find their seats, it's going to take them quite some time to be able to scan through, regardless of whether you've done alphabetical or table number. You're going to have some bottlenecking right at your reception entrance, which means you're kind of putting off getting to dinner and dancing and all the fun stuff that comes after that. You want to give people plenty of time to be exposed to this list, so as many people as possible will go up to it without prompting. Now for us, we tend to say, hi, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get started with dinner, so if you haven't done so already, go ahead and find your seat on the seating chart right over there and make your way into the reception space. So we just like a gentle, quick reminder, and I would say like a generous portion of time, half the guests haven't even looked at it. But hey, that's still half of them that have. And that's a-okay by me. That means that's like 50 less people that are standing there waiting to find where they're seated. Now, a couple of like closing pro thoughts for you when it comes to seating chart, assigned seating, assigned tables, what have you. Start planning early. Like, you can always scoop people around later, but because it tends to be a stressful thing for a lot of people, the earlier you start kind of working groups together, the better you will feel. You can always add or remove people later, but just get started on it now. This is something that I go into way more detail in the master plan, which if you guys don't know, it's an online resource that I've created for you guys to help you plan your wedding, as if I was your online wedding planner. And this is something we definitely delve into in that. I'll leave a link to that in the description box below if you're interested. But sorting people out as you go just makes your life so much easier in the end. A great way to sort people is group them according to life circumstance. Obviously, coworkers would go really well at one table. If it happens to be your high school friends, they would probably go really well all together. They may not know each other, but they should have enough common ground to stand on to have pretty decent conversation throughout the dinner hour. Next thing, do not expect perfect numbers. Whether you have 8 people that you can fit at a table or 10 people that you can fit at a table, that's not gonna happen. You will not have 8 tables with 10 people perfectly fitting at each and every single one. You're going to have tables with 6. Like, it can fit 10, but you can only figure out how to fit 6 there because you can't figure out another group of 2, 3, or 4 to go along with them. And that's okay. And you're gonna have some tables where you're like, oh shoot, I don't know quite how to make this work. I think we're gonna have to split a chunk off and go to this table. That's okay. It's gonna happen. You will not have perfect tables. The numbers will not be a perfect number. If you can fit up to 10, a lot of your tables are gonna have like 7 and 8 people at them, just because it's so hard to get those perfect numbers. And lastly, but most certainly not least, you're gonna have the awkward table. Now, not the singles table, because that's just making it awkward on purpose, but you're going to have that table where you're like, well, I hope you get along. Like, just, you're gonna have a circumstance where you're like, couldn't make that perfect, so we're just gonna roll with it. Just keep in mind that people are only seated for dinner for like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and they will be more than happy to get through that just to be able to get with you on the dance floor. So don't feel like you have to make every table perfect. Whether you're doing assigned seating or not, it is not your responsibility to own every guest's exact experience for the entire hour that they're at dinner. It's okay. They're only going to be there for a little bit of time, and you can make it up to them by shaking it out on the dance floor or coming by and saying hi. Don't own that part too much, because every single wedding has that table or two tables where you're just like, well, these feel hodgepodgey, and that's the best that I can do. So that's what we have for today, folks. Thank you so much for stopping by. Again, if you haven't heard about last week's announcement, go check that out. Also, if you're interested in the mixer coming up at the end of this month, grab your tickets down below. And if you haven't checked out the master plan, do that. Do that right now, down below. Check it out. You're gonna love it. I promise. Why do I say that? Because there are a bunch of people that are already in there and they love it too. If you haven't done so already, like this video because you like the video, and subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. And until next week, bye guys.